Audiencia, and welcome back to the Oye Dimelo Cinema Club. I am one of your gracious, delightful hosts, JP Ceruno, and with me is this wonderful round table of peoples. We got, of course, my partner Michaela Booth. We got El Dondino in the house as well, and Steve Dez from across the world, Mr. Worldwide Dez. Jason will be joining us shortly, but it's all good. The movie that we are watching here today was, of course, the 2005 SpongeBob SquarePants movie starring Tom Kenny, directed by Steven Hillenburg, his directorial movie debut. I really am a fan of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and okay, never mind. I couldn't think of a bit before doing this thing, so that's on me. We actually watched Spirited Away! Yay! Was that also 2005? I don't think so. I think that might have been 2001 or 2002. Hayao Miyazaki's Spirited Away, the first animated film internationally wise to be nominated and win Best Animated Picture here in the US. It also happens to be my first movie introduction towards anime as a cinema art. And my first Hayao Miyazaki experience. I know my sister probably watched Kiki's Delivery Service before watching this movie, but this one for sure was my first Studio Ghibli film. So right now we're going to go into initial thoughts. So we're going to pass it around the baton to whoever feels like it. Nah, you know what? Let's pass it to Dino. We'll pass it to Dino.
What? Hey guys, how it goes? Uh, so it's a 2001 film or a cartoon. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure Triplets of Bellevue was also nominated for Oscar, and I thought that was earlier. So Spirited Away 2001, Triplets was in 2003. So you might be correct. I had to to check your facts of if this was from 2005 or earlier. So it's way earlier,
Someone has
actually.
to, because
Yeah,
I
2001. Not the first time watching it. I think just the second time. Um,
really.
yeah. So I feel like I got into Ghibli kind of late in life. As in, I think as a kid I saw a couple of the older ones or parts, but I didn't really realize. Like, I remember once as an adult going and watching like Porco Rosco again. Like, I was like, oh, Flying Pig. That totally. I kind of remember some of of the storylines. Which, by the way, if that makes you happy, my brother loves dressing up as Porco Ross. What is it, Porco Ross for Halloween? So I'll have to send you a picture. But anyway, we're not talking about the other Ghibli fame. I did get into them because I was dating a girl who Princess Mononoke was supposedly either like her favorite film or something like that. So that's what kind of got me into it. And then I watched all of them, and then I guess she was more into Ghibli films than me per se. So, but that didn't give me a bad taste in my mouth with Ghibli films because they're still great.
That's
Probably
good.
greater than her than she ever was. Uh, I've, yet to,
Priorities.
I've yet to start talking about this film. All right. I'm getting very JP vibes that I just kind of going on different things. Yeah, so I enjoyed Spirited Away. I don't know if it's my favorite one. I was talking to Jason how some of these films, the Ghibli ones, feel long even though they're not. And I don't know if that's a pacing issue, but art wise and imagination wise, these Ghibli films are great. I mean, No Face, just the idea of that and how it grows is great. Now, what they were thinking of, like what was the artists and all that, like messages and all that, I'm like, I guess I can come up with my own, but there's gluttony, there's all these different things that pop up in the film. I really wanted to punch that dad at the beginning. It's like he goes off road, they're in like an Audi, and he's like, "Oh, I have
4-wheel drive.
yeah, 4-wheel drive, and we're like, and then he's going so fast with his wife and kid, and just like zooming, and almost runs into it. So that alone, just really, the dad's very punchable. And then, of course, once they start eating like pigs, it's a little bit of the same. What my okay, one more thing, and then I'll pass it over because this has been too long. One thing that I kind of have an issue, which has nothing to do with the cartoon itself, at least on HBO Max and most other places, it's only in English. You can't really find like original language of any of the Ghibli films, at least in American streaming services. Maybe that's just me. All right, that's it. I enjoyed the film, but it has its issues. We'll come back, I'm sure.
For sure. And then let's pass it on. We're gonna go jet plane it across the street, the oceans. We're going to Dez worldwide. Dez.
Good thing you shifted over.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep it mine short and sweet. So I watched this movie, I'll say a little bit distracted, because I was watching it and attempting, or I'll say attempting, because it wasn't quite successful, to do some work at the same time. And because of that, it's my first time watching the film. I got very lost. And it literally took my friend, that he's not here right now, but it's one of his favorite films. He literally was watching it like with me, and then after like maybe 5 to 10 minutes in, he was like, "Is this Spirited Away?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it is. We're gonna discuss it." And he's like, "Oh, if I'm going out on a date with a girl and she says like Spirited Away is one of her favorite movies, I'm gonna marry that girl." He told me. So he feels very strongly about this film.
He's gonna find Dino's ex. Is what's gonna happen. It's gonna come full circle. That's what's gonna happen.
Basically. And I felt very lost throughout the film because I wasn't understanding fully everything. But my friend gave me a really nice explanation about the girl's imagination and like all these different things about elements of the movie that started to make sense to me, because just following the plot points, at least for me, I was just like, what's going on? The only anime I watch is Dragon Ball Z. What is this? So we're fighting. We're Super Saiyan mode. I don't see it. But like overall, I think animation. I'm sure we're going to get into that, but overall, like animation was really great. It's just story wise, I got a little lost. It's my first time watching it. Maybe I should watch it a second time.
That's a great T-shirt idea. You should write it down, Steve. The only anime I watch is Dragon Ball Z.
I'm sure that actually exists somewhere.
It has to exist somewhere. If you got lost though for watching this one, because Dino brought up Princess Mononoke, that one will give you a seizure.
that one I think is easier to follow. I don't know the older
really?
one.
Oh man, I feel that would like get so like oddly political and whatnot. But no, let's chill. We're gonna go to them's. We're gonna go to Kayla's.
This is definitely not my first time watching Spirited Away. I love Ghibli movies, especially with like the way that he's so good at simplistically showing character growth in a way that's just so natural. And we can get into that earlier. I love the way how he shows the spirit world, and it's honestly very interesting how similar it is to other lores across the world, like the whole idea of fairies being tempted by like the fae's food and then ending up getting trapped in their realm, and like all of that aspect that still plays across the entire universe is just something very interesting to me. And he does it in a way that's so cinematic. Like you can't just call this a cartoon, like this is animation with like a capital A. You know, there's a reason why it's going to hold up for a very long time.
Definitely with the capital A, like those poor hands, those poor animators' hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we're gonna go into my initial first impression, and it kind of was a first impression. We had the opposite problem that Dino had. When we watched it, we couldn't get the English dub. It went immediately to the original Japanese dub, which was the first time I ever saw in the original Japanese dub, as well as subtitles for the Japanese dub. Which, to compare the two, because I've seen the English dub that was done by John Lasseter and like the folks at Pixar who helped distribute this movie via Disney. I know almost. It was one of those movies like I remember lines from that film, and they've added lines in the English dub to help with context and exposition. I feel like watching the Japanese dub. They, of course, you know, if you're watching a movie based around your culture, you don't need that much context to explain what's going on. But they actually reworded a lot of the storyline in the American dub where it was a lot more linear. The movie still makes sense in the Japanese dub, but it's not as streamlined, oddly enough, where there's a few things that for the normal viewer you could have missed while watching it in the Japanese dub. But the Japanese dub was the original dub is pretty good. I'm just so used to watching it in the American one that a lot of things that I was expecting to happen in the original dub did not happen. But other than that, a grade A movie, beautiful work of art. Yeah, oddly enough, I agree. Almost all of Ghibli's movies, like, they feel a lot longer than they are because they managed to they pack in a lot for those movies. They do not hold back. They don't hold any punches. Nope. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to the rest of the discussion. Let's see. Man. I don't know. What should we talk about? We talked about the look of the movie. I guess we could start with that. Let's talk about the look of the movie, because in my opinion, in my humble opinion, where Studio Ghibli tends to kind of, I don't want to say falter. I don't think exposition or story is their strong suit. It's purely the visuals. I mean, half of their movie itinerary is based on books. So, like, not all of their stuff is purely strictly original works. So, but like the visuals, that is where the movie is absolutely superb. Was there any outstanding moments or scenes visual wise that you guys were like, holy shit? Or like, oh my God, those poor animators' hands. Because I felt that way every time I watch Aladdin, and whenever the genie pops up, it's like, those guys must have hated themselves every time Robin Williams made a riff or something. Can you imagine drawing Robin Williams, putting that to life? But anyways, you guys go on ahead. What was in the movie most appealing to you visual-wise?
I feel like this is probably one of Miyazaki's most luxurious-looking films that he's ever made. Just because, like, so much of it is just in these very rich reds and warm tones, just because like it's supposed to be like an inn and all of that. But like on top of that, there's like a lot, like the warmth of the color palette of this entire movie really just adds to the juxtapositions when he uses blues and stuff. So it feels luxurious. Like the coloration of this film is just absolutely luscious. Yeah. Absolutely.
Is this the one? I mean, yeah, because the older ones, this almost has the most realism in some of the architecture, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though this is in like a spirit realm, or I don't know why I say even though it's in some sort of like in-between world or whatever. Because even the shots of like the where the parents like eat the pigs, and it's eat the pigs when the parents become the pigs, and just like the shots of just like the little vendor area and like the food and all that, it's like so much description, so much detail, which some of the other Ghibli films, it's not that they lack, it's just a slightly different style. And it's, I think, kind of like Michaela said, this one, the reds, the colors pop more, where some of the other ones are a little more muted in their colors. So that's something I definitely did notice, style wise, that it was a poppin'.
Yeah.
You too?
Well, Super Saiyan Des. What about you?
I was visually primarily, to me, a little bit of the environment, but the characters. Like the characters were very detailed, and especially the main ones, like the characters that were very focused on, because the little things that were just around or whatever, they didn't have that crazy detail, but the ones that were like key focused, like had an extensive amount of detail, and I really like that about the movie.
Yeah, for certain. Like when you like every character in this movie, if they're not humanoid, so basically like our kind of the three characters that we kind of follow most, which is Chihiro as Sen, Haku, and then Lin, who helps Chihiro out. Like they're the only three like really humanoid-esque characters. Everyone else is a fucking like big-eyed monster with giant heads, multiple ligaments and hands. Even Yubaba, the bathhouse owner, half her body is her fucking head, and you just see the great details and like, ooh, you see that face, like, oh, that's definitely a Baba face. That's a Baba face if I've ever seen one.
Each of those wrinkles probably cost $20.
Oh no, I'm betting you probably less because I don't know. I don't think Japan has unions when it comes to animation departments.
Who is the spider guy down below in the boiler room? Man?
His Kamachi.
He might be my favorite of like the characters, just because just everything that's going on. Like again, if you're talking about the artist drawing and everything of like, it's like, all right, how many hands does he have? How many legs does he have? And what is this one doing? What is that one doing? I just enjoy that. I don't know if that right there just kind of shows their imagination of just like, what if instead of just a man being in the boiler room doing stuff, and because when we first see him, we don't necessarily see that he has all those arms, right? It's just a little, and then all of a sudden it just starts going over the place. And with that, I want to the little coal dust things. Are those also in Totoro?
They're in Totoro, yeah.
Okay.
It was funny because I actually made that joke while we were watching the movies, like, like they like this is the first time they got a job in like 20 years.
So that's kind of sad. We got a train, but we didn't have a cat bus.
No cat bus. I feel like the only thing like vehicle wise, because like, a lot of Miyazaki movies have a lot of vehicles, but this one not so much. And the only one that we see is the train, and that looks like the most normal ass looking train in one of the movies. But the boiler, I saw that boiler. I was like, that is definitely a Miyazaki boiler if I've ever seen one. Like it's there. It's definitely there. I also really like Kamaji's the Boiler Man's character, especially his anatomy changes a bit because he's a spider while working the cogs and furnishing up the boiler, but as soon as he has to get the stuff for the water, like the herbs and whatnot, his spider-like arms suddenly become tentacles. Where they no longer have joints, they're just stretching out and about. My favorite visual in this movie even while watching it when I first saw this as a kid, it just stuck out to me because like it was the only part of the movie that I both loved and hated. And it is when on Chihiro's first day on the job, they deal with what they believe to be is the stink spirit who is full of just sludge and gross crap. It's expelling like just jelly filled stuff and whatnot. It looks like jelly that you would put on your toast or something, but it's a jelly of death. And once they pull out the what they thought was a thorn, you realize, oh no, this is literally just a poor demon just being held onto all this like landfill and junk. And it's very specific junk. It's a bicycle, a fridge, car parts, shopping carts. Like suddenly this big gelatinous mass becomes like physical junk, like stuff that you could like you see and you know like as a person like wow, I've definitely had one of those before.
Well, it's because he's a river god.
Yeah,
but that's like the whole brilliance of that scene is it kind of foreshadows what Haku actually is, and on top of that, it's a statement on how we impact the world around us without even us realizing it, and like having Chihiro deal with our humanly greed because that is the main theme of the film is greed and the consequences of said greed in all their forms.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry. That was for sure mine. My favorite visual was that literal, like, disgusting mass of sick, which is crazy because it gets a lot worse once the movie progresses. Like, that's not the most disgusting thing in the movie.
Yeah, no, when Miyazaki decides to go gross, he goes gross.
It's gross.
So gross.
But before we even go into that, is there? I guess we'll go on the regular itinerary. This film, like Des mentioned before, like a bunch of characters in this movie. There's a few that we actually follow, but is there anyone character-wise, either background or main in the story, that you guys like thought stood out or happened to like in any particular way or fashion?
Well,
for some reason, the baby.
Oh my god, Buddha was frightening. I didn't.
I was gonna go with the frog, even though the frog is that like, yo, I got a frog stuck in my throat. Is that what they're in that culture also is the same thing, and that's why that's the voice of No Face. But
I gotta wonder if that's a universal thing, because it's definitely on the nose in like American culture, but I'm not sure.
Probably is. It's just it has a different connotation.
That is I thought that was a very clever. Everyone in that movie had a rough 2 days. Like you brought in the new person in the temp job guy, and in less than a day and a half, things just get fucked. And that poor frog got kind of the brunt of it. He turned out okay. It was clever that's how they gave the no face character a voice. Mm-hmm. Is like in an amalgamation of whatever like living being it consumes, that becomes its voice. Mm-hmm. But I think for me it is like if it's not you Baba, it is No Face. Mm-hmm. Like just the simplicity of No Face, and plus commercial wise, that probably sold the most mass. Like, oh my God! It's Jason. Jason's in the house. Oh God! We're
gonna take a brief pause into our discussion of this great cinematic work, and we're gonna pass it along to Jason and his thoughts on the 2001 movie Spirited Away. So let us go.
Okay. Thanks for having me, folks. So initial thoughts on this movie. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty dope. I'd never seen it before. I've only seen the one other Miyazaki movie that we did here, the Grave of the Fireflies. But a good accompanying piece with this film is a documentary, Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, which I have seen. So I'll probably end up knocking out all the Miyazaki films or Ghibli films, Studio Ghibli films at some point or another. But I really dug this thing, man. It got me in the feels a little bit. It gave me vibes of like Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland. Um, it was really cool. I liked a lot of the characters, and it's just a fantastical world. Like I just kept thinking the whole time I'm watching this movie, like, who and what is the beautiful mind that created this thing, or the beautiful minds? I know like Miyazaki has this like hand firmly imprinted on the process of like writing the story and creating these characters from the documentary that I saw. But this thing is so fantastical. It's like I don't even know how he thought of this thing, and the whole movie sort of feels like this. It sort of feels like there's like hidden messages and Easter eggs in it, and I don't know what any of them are. So maybe you guys know what they are, but it just feels like he's trying to say other things with the story and with like the way the scenes sort of like move. But more than that, it almost feels very personal. It feels like a lot of these things are very personal things from his life that maybe we'll never know about. And I don't know that to be true, but that's the feeling that I got. So that's my initial impression of the film.
No, we are definitely immersed in the machinations of someone's overworked, depressed grandpa.
Yeah.
That is definitely what we saw. Oh, well, while you were gone, Jason, we were just going into, we were talking about, oh shit, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, yes, we were talking about what in the movie was, did we catch on visual-wise, and also character in the film as well.
Okay. You said what caught me visually?
Yeah.
Yes, as the visual, because animation is primarily a visual medium.
JP brought up that first sludge monster that just had that whole scene. I brought up Boiler Room Man, so we talked about that.
So the thing that caught me the most, and there are a lot of things, but the thing that really caught me and I found the most interesting were the transformations of the characters. When they all sort of transformed into something else at one time or another. Like I think almost everybody, except for like maybe the little girl and the one sort of steward, everybody else sort of turned into something else, which I'm sure says something about what's going on there. I will ask one question, and maybe I missed it. Do we ever see Haiku? Do we ever see him turn into the dragon initially?
No. He just goes. She follows him up to like kind of like a window or something, and then sees the dragon fly out, and she somehow assumes and just knows whether it's the color tones or something, but she just knows.
Yeah.
But she sees him fly away as the dragon.
Yeah.
So she sees him transform. We just don't.
No. Just she sees him kind of like in the terrace or somewhere, but doesn't see the transformation. Just that Haku is up there, and then there's a dragon flying. So she just knows. It's
part of the intuition, and the movie kind of like hints at it where she is not aware yet to how she knows Haku, but because she sees the dragon after meeting him, it's almost instinctual that she knows that happens to be him, which is crazy because in the English dub, they have an extra line to kind of suggest that even more. But in the Japanese dub, it's pure silence. Like that's up to the audience to decipher what just happened.
Well, it's also a cultural thing too, because like a big part of like how they believe in spirits is like everyday items are things. So like I don't think that would be something they would need to be explained.
Okay.
Like they'd just be like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That's how spirits work.
For sure. Well, yes, I mean
it's a cultural thing.
Well, the first time we see the dragon is not when the dragon's being attacked by the paper birds, right?
Correct.
That's not the first time.
Correct.
Okay.
He's just, woo, I'm flying, I'm a dragon.
Yeah.
And then we end up seeing the other dragon from the sludge thing because he's a river god too, and so you kind of
So
like, hey, wait, that looks like the same kind of silvery creature that is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because it was like so far away that it could be mistaken as like just a ribbon inside, like in the sky of light and whatnot. But then once you see the actual river spirit, it's like, oh, that's how they look like up close. Which of course, I guess in Japanese culture, they already know that. Me as an American first seeing this in the cinema back in 2001, I didn't know that. So I was like, oh my god! Especially that they like to add fucking wrinkles to faces. That sludge monster was frightening. I think it was a little bit more frightening once you see its actual face. Is like, oh, that face is that it needs moisturizer.
I feel Yubaba has the most wrinkles, no?
Definitely has
the face does all wrinkles.
I don't remember the sludge monster's face underneath the sludge.
Oh no,
it's just like a really old man's face.
Yeah, and it's
like it almost feels like it comes out of nowhere, where you're just like all of a sudden like you're in this greedy space where there's like water and zen and all just a floating old man's head, and you're just like, what?
And it's not even complete. It's just the first half of the face, and then like the loose bottom jaw, which I thought was kind of eerie. But you know, it's also very mystical because like you see it, and as frightening as that is, like you could kind of sense like it's not dangerous, but it's like that's still a scary looking motherfucker.
Okay. I got another question then. I sort of do remember the floating old man head now that you mention it. I got another question. With the spirit, the spirit with the mask, the black spirit.
No face?
Yeah, no face. When no face is skinny, no face is like very friendly and demure and kind and helpful. But then like the fatter no face gets, the more it wants to eat Chihiro.
Oh, Chihiro, yeah.
Chihiro. Why is that?
It's crazy because
who is no face to begin with, right?
Yeah, it's funny because like this is the first time that they actually explain in the original Japanese dub, which we saw. Because I remember the English dub, they don't really describe what no face is. They just say that no face is a monster who should not have ever come into the bathhouse at all, and not everybody knew what a no face is. But in the Japanese dub, they do describe what no face is. No face is a greed demon who actually feeds off the greed of others. So like by Chihiro not accepting his offer of gold, because you know he does it first as a form of act of kindness, because Chihiro was the only one that showed kindness towards him in the beginning. But then you see No Face trying to tempt her with more stuff, you know, like more bath tokens, more gold. But because she's the only character to deny the greed and not give into it, it freaks him the fuck out. And so then he goes absolutely berserk because it goes against his nature that no one is feeding into the greed that he's giving. It's crazy because like I never saw it as that while watching the American dub. But then they explained it a lot better in the Japanese dub, which is like, I'm sure they couldn't fit all that shit into like a few lines of dialogue, like in our American language. So, but yeah, that's why No Face was going berserk.
It's interesting that they chose not to reveal that to American audiences or to English-speaking audiences.
Yeah, it's crazy because like. I think in the movie they only describe it in like 3 lines.
We got a no face right here, am I right?
Hey-oh, snacks. But yeah, like in literally 3 lines of like Japanese dialogue, like I suddenly like got why No Face is fucking crazy. But like in the American dub, you just know him as a monster that should have never been into the bathhouse to begin with. But yeah, we talk about characters, visuals. We kind of delved into it a little bit. Does anyone want to talk about any particular moments or scenes in the movie? There are so many moments of both just calm and zen, and then just fucking nuts, just going absolutely everywhere. I never thought I would see a movie in which a paper cut could lead to almost certain death in a movie.
Well,
So
because he swallowed the witch's thing.
Yeah.
And he got cursed.
mhm.
That's what that was.
Yeah, but I'm sure those millions of paper airplanes did not help at all.
Yes. But
You know
yeah,
what? While I was watching the movie, Dino said something interesting. He said he's like these movies seem to go very long, even though they're not. Because we were talking about Princess Mononoke, and I told him that when I watched it like a year or two ago, or tried to, I thought it was like 3 hours long, and I still stand by that. I fell asleep on it like twice, and I woke up and it was still on. It just felt like it was going on and on and on. And when we looked up the film, it was only like a 2 hour and 14-minute running time. But for some reason, I remember it being like a 3 hour and 14-minute running time.
Ooh, you fell asleep and you were transported into the Ghibli world.
That's what it
of
felt like.
Mononoke.
What it felt like for sure. So one thing that Dino said, he goes, even though it's a 2 hour film, he said it does feel long. So I was kind of watching it consciously with that in mind. I think I know why that is. I don't know if you guys have the same experience. I think the reason it might feel long, at least to us on this side, they explore like through animation, which sort of leads to like this emotional empathy, like little moments of the movie, like when they're eating, you really see the character like eat all their food. You know, when she's eating her rice cakes or her rice balls or whatever, she doesn't just eat one and bite it, or like most cartoons, like she takes her time and savors all three, and they show it, and it takes like 45 seconds for her to eat all of this food, you know, and it's like kind of crazy. Like, oh, they showed it all. It wasn't boring because the animation's so good, and you also get to see her savor this meal, and she hasn't eaten in a long time. But because she savors this meal through animation, you end up seeing like she doesn't have an appetite because she doesn't have her parents, and she's so focused on trying to like save them that she's like, I don't have an appetite to eat. So Haiku like basically says, no, you have to, because this is magic and it's going to give you your strength back. You know, so be sure to eat everything. And you know, I thought that was like beautiful. Those are beautiful little like moments that make you empathize with the character, but seemingly it's nothing. You know what I mean? Those kind of moments are some of the more beautiful ones to me.
I think that's the brilliance of Miyazaki films in general, is like he tends to celebrate the banal, even in these crazy situations. Because like even the way she just like walks, like the way she moves, you know, like you see the small details in life that like add up to what a life is. You know, like even then she has to get dressed.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moments
I agree.
of just like I said earlier, just zen and quiet, which is crazy because in the Japanese original dub, there's more of that. In the American dub, they add a lot of additional exposition in those moments, because I'm pretty sure, like in you know how we watch films in the U.S. and America, like we have to have a continuing motion, and so they see like something that has like a 10-second pause of no audio is like, oh no, we're gonna lose the audience. We gotta add in a line or two there just so it doesn't look like there's a pause.
And the characters aren't facing the the audience. So yeah, you can add dialogue. I noticed that too. I'm like, oh, okay, they're talking, but we can see their face or their mouth. So clearly, you know, if they're walking away from the audience type of stuff, they'll be having a conversation. But yeah, I can totally see that in the original version, just you don't hear as much. Which when we were investigating the runtime, I found out that they don't have different versions like lengthwise, because I forget what of the cartoons, one of the first ones that was brought over to the US, I guess they re-edit it and stuff like that and recut it for the US audience, and they found out I don't know if it was the main guy, but he was like so since then it's like it comes over as it comes over. Other than I guess the dub, everything else has to be exactly like it is. So that's kind of cool that they've been able to hold the movies as they were intended to be seen.
Which is such an American thing to do, and I'm betting that movie was probably My Neighbor Totoro, because that film has 3 different dubs. I think it wasn't not.
No, it's not that one. It was it's an older one.
Gotcha. Older. What? Well, it's older.
Mhm.
Well, there is older ones, but older.
So in the Japanese version, is there more exposition describing what's happening with the characters and their development and their transformations?
I think from what I recall, there's more like logic or more reasoning to it, but it's not as expositional as the American one. Because the
Okay.
American one does have additional lines of dialogue, where the Japanese one, it kind of leads you more into like, well, like they'll get it. Like one of the major differences actually between the Japanese and the American dub is near the end. The deal that Yubaba and Haku makes, where in the American dub, Yubaba is at a lower power and tells Haku is like, okay, fine. Like I see that you have the upper hand. What do you want to get my baby back? And then they make the terms of conditions where it's like, okay, if you bring the baby back, I'll send Chihiro back to her world, but she has to pass a test first. Where in the Japanese dub, it kind of implies that Haku is still playing the role of the apprentice and is willing to still be subservient to Yubaba and get the baby back, but to please promise to send Chihiro back to her home, in which he says, like, forget that. If you don't bring him back, then you're all dead to me, you know. Where
How is she able to recognize her parents at the end?
because she's just fucking brilliant. She's Chihiro, dude. She grew years of like experience in the span of like what 3 days.
Well,
No, it's way more than 3 days.
yeah, because a car is completely just trashed when they get
But
back to it.
in the spirit world, it looks like it only happens in a few days. But when they go back, it's obviously has been a lot longer.
Yeah.
There might be something to that.
Well, that's part of fairy lore in general, because like essentially this is what we're playing with, is their version of fairies. And so when you go to the fairy realm, like time works differently in both of those dimensions. So what's a couple seconds there could be years and years and years here. So it's the same concept.
So answer me this: what's the deal with the frickin' stamp? And I don't know if the Japanese version says it differently, but it's like Haku would never steal that. He's not a robber, but he has it, but he ate it. And then it just gets solved kind of super quickly. Also, fun fact, Haku in Guarani, indigenous language in South America, in Paraguay, means hot. And Haku was hot. Am I right? Up top.
Haku was definitely several weaves sexual awakening. That is undeniable fact.
Did anybody else wonder like what Haku's haircut would look like if he was a real person?
Yeah.
Flowing like the river. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
No, but like the thing about the Witch's Seal is the reason why that's important is because in this world, your name is the most important thing that you can have. And so that is literally her signature to the point. So like all of her power into making contracts and stuff.
Yeah.
And which is probably why Haku stole it, because in order it would give the other twin sister a leg up over her good sister, and he was essentially trying to bribe her into letting Chihiro go. And that's what that was about.
Okay. I definitely didn't read that. Like that motive. No, because I was under the assumption that this was Haku probably did this at the behest of Yubaba.
Yeah.
Since there is that connection, because like in like, you know, as soon as he shows up completely injured and whatnot, she says like, wow, now he's useless because he's fucking broken. Like, just throw him away, you know? Because I think he did come back with the intention of going back to Yubaba. But, you know, as soon as you see that your crony is like broken legs, you put it down like a goddamn horse.
Well, and like you have to remember that the reason why he's so protective of Chihiro anyways is because he remembers her.
Yeah, and that's
that's the link to him finding his name, and that's how he can break his apprentice contract. Is if he has his name, he has power over his own agency. Because again, we're dealing with fairy rules here, and
it didn't seem to come out of nowhere, didn't it?
Yeah.
Huh?
Didn't it seem to come out of nowhere?
But that's kind of Studio Ghibli also, or Ghibli, whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of happened. All right. So we saw it was another river god or whatever, the super murky one, and that's just because people throw trash in the rivers. I imagine is what the sludge was. And then Haku is the some other river god. And then were there more? Like the lady that was helping her, that was I guess also human, had she died and was kind of stuck there? Because then she's like, "Oh man, one day I hope to have a train ticket." Like, what? There were some characters that I'm like, "Why are you there? Like, are you human? Are you also a spirit? Are you also a god?"
I thought at this point that they're all spirits from the other world, and all those people who worked in the place, they were all fishes, so they thought the humans stunk.
No, I mean that, yeah, but
they were all like fish ghosts.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah, no, I don't know so much what Lin was. Like, she could have been a kitsune. She could, like, something along those lines. Like, she's essentially a fairy, a pixie.
Okay.
Essentially, or like that would be what the equivalent in the hierarchy is.
Okay.
Like the only like dead people we really see is like that's what I think the train is.
Yeah, because they look like ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's on the nose a little bit too. It's like, oh well, that's their way of crossing to the other side.
Yeah,
right. Because before crossing into the bridge, in the where the parents had gotten turned into pigs, those ghosts were there as well.
This movie explores greed a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It is.
All right, final question I have, and then I don't know, because I have so many.
We're talking to you guys like you are
the Miyazaki lexicons.
Yeah. The three heads, what are those? Like, because when you said what characters would we maybe want to see their more of their lives, it's like I'd watch a prequel of that. Like, what's going on? Like
the three Shrek heads. Oh my god!
Yeah. Is that like see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil type of thing of the just three?
Oh, dude, who knows? Like, I'm betting that's more of a cultural thing. Like, whatever those things represent. Because I hated those things as a kid. It's like, those. And also, like, she didn't notice that those motherfuckers were gone, like, at all. You know, the baby's, like, just eating its fucking face out. But it's like, hey, where are those three assholes?
Basically,
you jujuled.
I did, because, like, this is based off of a very specific story, and they're called Kashira. But essentially, for Yubaba's purposes, they're basically her pets.
Her pets?
Yeah.
Her pets.
Like a lapdog almost.
Yeah.
I was always wondering like who the little Yubaba crow was. Is like, is that the grandma? Like, what is that?
Probably familiar.
Probably. That poor crow worked its ass off, like just flying that chubby rat. From the baby was a chubby rat.
MVP.
So where did before it's like a little crow and it looks more like the witch? Where did that thing come from? Because the first time I remember seeing it is when she gets into the office and all the the ruckus is happening. Like, is that the first time we see that thing?
No, from when we see Baba flying at the beginning, the little one is also there, I believe.
It kind of acts like surveillance for the whole like land. So like that's the first time we see that particular creature is when Haku tries to hide Chihiro in sight of that thing, which is like, ooh, like that's obviously a no-no. And then of course it happens to look like Yubaba. So it kind of helps us set up like, oh, the big bad happens to look like that thing. even though there's no real big bad in this movie. Like, it just happens to be assholes who live in the spirit world.
Well, and I'm wondering if that's part of why these movies might sometimes be hard for people to get narratively, because in America, we tend to like our hero cycles very concise, very clear. We love moralizing everything to the point of ridiculousness. So it's always good versus evil, like black versus white. Like, we like to have very strict contrasts. Where I've noticed in a lot of Asian storytelling, because like I read a lot of Korean books as well, like they don't really moralize so much. It's just like, this is what, like they focus more on individual goals versus good versus evil, which is why it's like the good witch just isn't as greedy as the other one, and that's why the other one has that downfall. But that's why she also doesn't get as punished as much, because it's just a personal flaw versus like a great evil.
It was very much also Princess Bride. True love. You know?
Liar! Liar!
Coolio. Yeah,
R.I.P.
I mean, overall, pretty wild and very, very beautiful film, I think.
Most definitely. I fucking hate that these movies like give an unrealistic what's the word?
They make eggs look so good.
That you knew where I was going with this. Unrealistic expectation of food.
Yeah, there was a lot of dishes in this thing.
And
A
all
lot
of
of
them
different,
look
like
so
they
good.
didn't like just keep reusing the same dish either. There's all types of dishes.
I got
Most
so
of them pork based.
right. And in the scene where you see the havoc that No Face has created once he gets into his gluttony form, the one thing that pissed me off the most in that scene was like I saw in the background like there's a Thermidor lobster that hasn't even been touched, like it's just there.
Yep.
He didn't eat it.
Doesn't have to.
It's a waste.
He's the embodiment of greed, and that's what greed leads to, is waste.
Yeah, that's true.
Just me personally, which took me back, I guess, as a kid. Just speaking of the food, every now and then, but specifically in one part, you see the fish and like the head's still kind of there, but it's all just bones, and it just reminded me of like Heathcliff. Hey, is that what it was called?
Yeah, the not Garfield cat.
Yeah. When they like put the fish in and it's just the bones. I don't know. It just reminded me of that. Of my childhood.
Am I to assume, Steve, that you didn't see this film?
Oh, he already spoke everything. He saw it with his like best friend who is in love with this movie.
Okay.
And is also engaged to Dino's ex.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who also loves the Ghibli films.
that's very coincidental.
Yeah, it's the whole thing.
Coinkadinky.
We got through it. The first 20 minutes was JP and me talking nonsense.
Okay, awesome.
Definitely.
All right, JP. Anything else you want to jump into as the before final thoughts?
We're definitely pretty close there. Is there anything from the film that anyone wants to talk about, divulge, speak now, or forever hold your okay?
Sorry, it's just because I noticed that, like, this was like the first time I ever noticed this. This time watching around, the stair scene is brilliant because, like, it shows Chihiro's character development in such a subtle way that if you blink, you miss it. Because the first time she traverses those stairs, she's taking them one by one, she's sitting down, and then literally 12 hours later, she runs down that staircase like it's nothing. That is what we call character development, and I just made me so happy.
Sorry, there was a helicopter, so I don't know if I fully heard you. The one that she's like butt dragging herself, and then the thing breaks, and she's just like, ah! We see her running through that again.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, she actually goes through the stairs 3 times in the movie. The second time is she's walking up the stairs to meet Haku. and she has no fear at this point. She's very calmly going up the stairs. But then when she goes down the stairs a third time to try to help Haku and get rid of No Face, she runs down there with absolute urgency.
So the stair thing, the bit at the beginning, like that was like my main issue or problem because I've butted downstairs before and like as a kid, and she was doing like a weird sideways thing where it's like, yeah, that's more dangerous, and yeah, you can probably fall because she was doing like side bump, like lowering herself, which to me made no sense whatsoever. But
She might have went down 4 times because one time Haiku takes her down and he's like running sideways, like almost samurai ninja style.
That's
Yeah,
right.
And he's dragging her behind him.
The amount of times like they have her trip in this movie, I think it's a Studio Ghibli thing because I've seen enough of them where like I know there's a lot of scenes where they have the main character like trip, like, and they do it so well. Like they animate like, oh, that's a person tripping. I believe that, but why is that a thing that they have to put into like their audit or checklist of like we must have the main character trip or almost end the movie with a concussion? Because there's several times where like if this girl fell the wrong way, the movie would have ended.
2 words, GP. Head swoggle.
That's
That's why.
oh my goodness.
It's the equivalent of the head swoggle. They do it because they can, and they're showing off that they can articulate a body in such a specific way.
Goodness. Radio. That was my little alarm. That doesn't necessarily mean that the discussion is over. But if no one else has anything else, we could just go into final thoughts.
Well, I am interested in one thing, and maybe you guys already talked about it. I just want to hear who everybody's favorite character is, whether it's just your favorite character or like the one that you most want as a plushie.
Well, mine, I don't think was going to be a plushie. The Boiler Man, I think was for me just so intricate.
What about the rest of you guys?
You see, it's crazy because I think mine was also the Boiler Man, but the one that I like aesthetically find the most pleasing is No Face. Just because, like,
has like a lot of toys, and I've always seen like the plushies and the toys in the store, and I'm like, what is this character? And is it good? Is it bad? What is it? I'm so happy I finally seen it. I think I like want one.
Right, but then you think like, why is this something you'd give to kids, right? Or why is this like talk about mirroring the real world, right? Like the pay money for this, I want this, pay for No Face.
I mean, No Face probably has to be the most sold character, and it's like basically nothing. It's a cloak and a mask. That's the one that I would want. I don't know about you guys. I like it when it's smiling.
Yeah.
He's also such a great character because they do him right where you can't read him at all, but you can't really trust him either. Like it's just this ominous figure looking overhead, like you don't know if he's dangerous or not, but you definitely cannot trust him. And then it's like
maybe that's a brilliant sort of what's the word? Brilliant sort of indication of what greed is. I'm losing my train of like what word I want to use, but maybe it's just like a statement to what greed is. Maybe you can't trust greed, but sometimes greed is good. Like sometimes you need a little greed to motivate you to do something, but then like too much greed and like you're eating your own friend.
Yeah.
He's intentions. All good intentions lead to like our path to hell. I think that's
right.
what it is, because like every action he takes when he's in his like nice form is like coming from a place to try to help or do something beneficial. It's not until like someone really feeds into his energy that he like becomes bad luck.
Yeah, I was a little weirded out by him because he's smiling on the bridge. He's just sort of waiting. He's coming in and out of like translucence, like out of fruition. And then because I've been like on this Michael Myers kick lately, I'm listening to like and watching the movies. He's waiting for her outside in the bushes. I'm like, wait a minute, what What are you, No Face? Because he's waiting, but she's not afraid of him, so I'm not afraid of
And
him
at
either.
first, he's like the first one to kind of notice her.
No one
Yeah,
else can
like-
do him. Yeah.
See, now I want someone to re-edit that scene with like the thing like just slightly like you hear like.
Well,
Yeah, I might work on that tomorrow for you. We'll see.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, but also you have to remember he kind of plays by like old-fashioned vampire rules. He can't
Yeah.
go anywhere unless he's
So-
invited.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that because early on when we were first starting, I was gonna be like, "Do we have vampire rules going on here?" Because more than once did she just invite people in to a place that she wasn't even like it wasn't even her place to invite someone into.
It was her first day. She was trying to be good customer service. It's not her fault.
Hey, when they all look spooky and scary, how are you supposed to know that this is spookier and scarier?
And she didn't have any friends in that moment. She thought like Haiku was two different people. He was the only one that had like smiled at her. So she was just happy to have someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's true. Just true. All right.
Okay. Also, the twin sister. I like the twin sister.
What was the twin sister's name?
Zeniba.
Zeniba.
I just like the way that they were both animated. I think they're probably like the coolest looking pieces.
It was definitely a choice where it's like, because usually in other movies, like you can at least they try to make the other twin or the two twins look slightly different, like color code or whatever, different haircut. No, they basically are the same, like visual wise. It's the same character.
Yeah.
I like that the river sludge was full of treasure from the river.
Yeah.
Right.
That was some nasty treasure, though. I'm sure you could resell some of them stuff, especially the bike and the auto parts.
That's right.
All right, then let's go into final thoughts.
All right, I'll go. I'll try to be quick. I like the movie. I think it's super visually pleasing with most of the Ghibli films. Out of all the ones that I've seen, I don't think this one's even in the top 3 of the Ghibli films for me. But it's still enjoyable. It's got beautiful colors and drawings, and I had something else I was going to say about it. I mean, I'd recommend it to people. I recommend it because it's Ghibli. I would try to recommend some of the other ones first, but if they're kind of hesitant, then I'd go into this one because it was the first one that was nominated for Oscar and that actually won also. So, yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts on it.
I'll go. Final thoughts. I need to rewatch the movie again. You know, because like I said in the beginning, I was a bit lost. Mainly because I was like in and out. Thankfully, my friend gave me some explanation about the film, and I understood it a little bit more. But I was very lost. I did enjoy the animation a lot. I did enjoy the journey that this main character that I can't remember the name right now, Zen, that was her second name, went through. For some reason, I like that giant baby and that never-ending story dragon. Final thoughts. I can see it again. Will recommend it to people that love anime, except the people that are like me and like Dragon Ball Z.
All right.
Michaela, you gonna jump in there?
That sounded like I want to go.
I definitely think that this, alongside with Howl's Moving Castle, are some of his most like luxurious feeling animations. And if you enjoy animation as an art form in general, this is a must see. You know, it's a coming of age tale that plays with like grown up themes in a way that you don't see done very often. It's executed beautifully. Like I don't think like this is a film that like I feel like every time you watch it, you're going to end up seeing something new and something exciting that you've never noticed before. You know, and so like it's a piece of art. And it should be enjoyed.
Agreed.
So I really enjoyed this film. it's interesting, like who I would recommend it to. I would recommend it to adults who love animation and maybe teenagers that love animation. I wouldn't feel comfortable letting small children watch this movie because there'd be a lot of questions, and I think maybe some kids will be afraid of this thing. You
Yeah.
know, parents turning into pigs, and this thing might lead to some uncomfortable feelings. I would say, like maybe like once you get to honestly, 10-year-olds may not even be into it because
Yeah.
they may not understand it or like, what is this? This isn't the kind of animation I'm used to. At least American 10-year-olds. I would say maybe 12 might be the age when kids will take interest in a thing like this. So that's who I would recommend it to. Maybe 12 and up, maybe 13 and up. Not that there's anything like harmful, but maybe a little scary for like smaller children. Um, I would watch this again. I thought it was really great. Like you said, the animation in it is very lush. It's a beautiful film. It's like I said, it's very fantastical and very unique and so very creative. It's probably one of the most creative animations I've ever seen ever. Just because it's like all these ideas of like at least the characters and the plot, or the themes, the characters and the themes all seem like new ideas to me. Like, man, it just feels like something that came to the ether and just sort of blessed this guy, and he was able to translate it, and we got this. The plot, I've seen this plot. It's a familiar plot, which is fine. It's a good plot. I like it. You know, Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite films of all time, so I really identify with this movie in that way. I like it. I like it. I've never done this before, but 2 thumbs up.
Very cool. We
That's,
broke the internet. 2 thumbs up from Jason. Fuck yeah. Okay. I totally agree when it comes to the age range because we saw this cinema. We saw this in the cinema with all my siblings. My younger brother was like, I don't know, 2 or something. He wasn't that young, but like he left the cinema, and so did I during certain parts because my daddy didn't want to leave him alone and whatnot. But he turned out okay. He turned out okay. So yes, definitely for 12-year-olds, I believe that's a good age. Like right before 13, 12 is great. 11 to 12. When it comes to all of the Ghibli movies, like I feel like Kiki's kind of a safe bet for the younger audience to like kind of grow into. Especially the older movies, they're a bit more zen, not as action packed, not as fantastical. But like once you get later down the road, like some of these movies get pretty darn intense. But definitely would recommend it to anyone who is for sure into the fantastical, just animation wise. I feel like this is like, yeah, a film basically for those who really enjoy fantasy movies and just animation as a medium. But I feel like this is a movie for everyone to enjoy. Probably viewer discretions for the little ones. Because if you have a smart kid and you know that they're going to be okay and they're brave, then just hold their hand. But like if you know they're not ready yet, then just wait and show the kiddies Ponyo. That's a cute one. I like Ponyo.
I think Ponyo was scary.
And like the
Dragon Ball Z.
original Japanese dub, completely great. I and also the American dub, I feel like, especially the ones that Disney helmed, I did not think they did anything wrong with those dubs. It's one of the few movies where, like, yeah, the dub is actually almost as good as the original. And that is our final thoughts. A+ movies.
We'll say this before we go, only because you mentioned the dub. My favorite dubbing, my favorite voice acting is the mentor of Chihiro. The woman that helps her out. Like I kept noticing her voiceover. I'm like, whoever's doing that is like doing a spectacular job. Not that anybody else was bad. It just stood out for me. It was really good acting.
Yes, I'm sorry. She's done a lot for you animation fans. She was Megara in Disney's Hercules, and more recently, she was, I think, Pink Diamond, Steven Universe's mom. Yes, she was also that person. But other than that, I think Jason's got another query going on.
It's funny you asked me because I was just thinking, Steve, what do you got for us next week?
Next week, I do not know why you asked me. I've been MIA. You know me. I'm traveling. I'm doing stuff. So ask the lovely Michaela because it's her turn.
Well, you beat me to the punch. You anticipated. So, since we are still doing influential movies, I thought I would pull out kind of an interesting cut. We are going to be doing 1931 Dracula, but not the Bela Lugosi version, the Spanish version that they made the same year.
Oh, Dracula.
Dracula, yes. And for extra credit, if you guys want to watch the original one so we can compare better, absolutely feel free. Thought this might be a fun little thing to see differences. It's a fun little moment in cinematic history, if I do say so myself.
Wait, did that say Carl Laemmle, or Carl Lamille? What was the guy's name on the second one? This one, is that Carl Laemmle or Lamille? Is that Laemmle, like the movie theater out here?
Yeah, the cinemas, they're named after him, I believe.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't think it's named after him. Like, a family owns that cinema, if that's the same people.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, it would be named after him, but yeah, I think that's a family name.
Probably.
Okay,
So,
good to know. I'll do some investigation work. I'll have that info for you next week.
fantastic.
So, optional double feature, but for sure, watch the Spanish one.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
Maybe watch it first just to get a vibe of what the Spanish one was coming with.
So for
Yeah,
Michaela, JP, El Dondino, Jason Eccles, and Steve, that's me. We'll catch you next week. Bye bye.
Ciao.